All right. So we're gonna do the first one. So the first one, sine squared theta plus cosine squared theta is equal to 1. The best way to prove this one is, you're gonna do the unit circle, right? Um, oops. So, oh, why aren't you writing? Come on now. So remember, we have our unit circle. We know x is cosine, and we know y is sine, right? So, all right, that's not drawn correctly, but whatever. So we know our radius. Our radius is always 1, right? For the unit circle, the radius is always 1. So this is 1 comma 0. This is 0 comma 1. This is negative 1 comma 0 and 0 comma negative 1. So no matter where x and y are at, the radius is always just 1. So if we do this, we have a triangle. We're going to have a right triangle. So we know this is going to be sine theta, right? And this is cosine theta. Well, we know this is 1, right? So we use Pythagoras theorem that says a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. So in this case, a, or x, is cosine squared, and then b is sine squared, and we know that has to equal to 1. That's pretty much the reason why sine squared plus cosine squared is equal to 1. So now for this one. So from this equation, sine squared plus cosine squared is equal to 1, you can derive both of these equations. So we have sine squared theta plus cosine squared theta is equal to 1. Well, so let's say, so the only thing now is you have to either divide by sine squared or you have to divide by cosine squared. So let's say, so for this one, we have tangent squared. So we know we got to make this into a tangent. And remember, tangent is sine over cosine. So we got to get sine over cosine. So that means we're going to divide everything by cosine squared. So we divide everything by cosine squared. So now sine squared over cosine squared is just tangent squared theta. Cosine squared divided by cosine squared, well, that's just 1. 1 over cosine, remember, 1 over cosine is secant, but since it's cosine squared, this is going to be secant squared. Okay? So now you want to get it in this format, secant squared minus tangent. Well, to do that, all you got to do is just subtract by tan squared by tangent squared. What do you do to one side? You must do to the other. So you're going to be left with 1 is equal to secant squared theta minus tangent squared theta. Okay? So we're going to do the same thing for this one. Cosecant squared minus cotangent. So once again, we're going to use sine squared theta plus cosine squared theta is equal to 1. So now we want cotangent. So cotangent is cosine over sine. So we need to divide everything by sine now. So we divide by sine squared theta, divide this by sine squared theta, and divide that by sine squared theta. Okay, sine squared over sine squared is just 1. This is cotangent squared because we just talked about it here. And then 1 over sine. 1 over sine is just cosecant. Alright, so this is going to be cosecant squared theta. So once again, it wants it cosecant squared minus cotangent. So you got to get rid of the cotangent and put it in the other side. So what you do to one side, you must do to the other. So you're going to be left with 1 is equal to cosecant squared theta minus cotangent squared theta. Alright? So you use that for those identities. So you're always going to use sine squared plus cosine squared, and then either one you're going to divide by cosine squared, or you can divide by sine squared. It's all the same deal. Alright, so now next up is we have sine of x over cosecant of x plus cosine of x over secant of x. So now we have to transform this into, we need to rewrite it. So we're going to rewrite secant as the way it is. The way to write secant. So that's 1 over sine. And then cosine, which just says it's cosine. And secant is 1 over cosine of x. Well, you're dividing by 1 over x. So remember, you have to multiply it by the reciprocal. So then this becomes sine of x times sine of x plus cosine of x times cosine of x. And this is just sine squared of x plus cosine squared of x. And remember, sine squared plus cosine squared is just 1. So all this simplifies to 1. So remember when I said this, so you can just try it in your calculator. Put 3 divided by 1/2. Right? It's the same thing as saying 3 times 2 over 1, or just 6. Okay? So you flip it over and you multiply. That's all you have to do. Alright, next up is sine theta over cosine theta plus cosine theta over 1 plus sine theta. So we need to make this, so in order to do this again, you have to do have the same common denominator, or we just cross multiply and do and multiply the denominators, right? Because remember the little thing for fractions is just a times d plus or minus c times b divided by bd. So we're essentially going to do the same thing here. So we're going to multiply. So sine times 1 plus sine. So sine times 1 is sine theta. Sine times sine is sine squared. Now we do the other side. Cosine times cosine. It's just cosine squared theta. And now we multiply the denominators. Cosine times 1 is cosine theta. Cosine times sine is just cosine theta times sine theta. Alright, so now we have to simplify this. So now we have sine squared plus cosine squared. So we know that is 1. This becomes 1. So you're going to be left with sine theta plus 1 over, or we leave this as that, as cosine theta times 1 plus sine theta. Well, you know sine theta plus 1 and 1 plus sine theta are the same thing. So when you cross them out, because they're the same, so you're going to be left with 1 over cosine theta. 1 over cosine theta is just secant theta. Okay? So that's it. So you don't always have to multiply them out like I did here. You can just rewrite it. So let me go ahead and just rewrite this stuff. So we left it as cosine theta times 1 plus sine theta. Right? That's why we get the same thing here. So whatever's the same on top and the bottom, well, they just cancel out. So you're left with 1 over cosine theta. 1 over cosine theta is just secant theta. And that's pretty much it for those.